Sometimes a single moment can split a life into before and after. For me, it happened the night she brushed past me in the hallway, her fingers barely grazing my arm, her perfume lingering in the air, her eyes refusing to meet mine. There was something in the way she moved, something too tense, too careful. A silence too heavy not to mean something. That was the first time I felt the truth breathing behind me, waiting to be seen. She wasn't the same woman who used to smile when she saw me. Her laugh had changed. Her gaze had shifted. And the warmth that once lived between us, it flickered only when she forgot to hide it. I didn't know whether to reach for her or to pull away, because every time she looked at me, it felt like she was carrying a secret she didn't want me to touch. But even then, there were moments, tiny, dangerous moments, when her eyes softened, when her voice dropped, when her breath caught like she wanted to say something she never dared. A kind of quiet electricity lived in those seconds. A tension that whispered of something broken, and something still fighting to hold on. Or maybe that was just me, holding on to the memory of us while she slipped somewhere else entirely. I started noticing things. The late-night texts she hid behind a tilted phone. The rushed showers. The way she'd fix her hair before going to the store. The way she'd come home smelling like a place she'd never mention out loud. The truth wasn't loud. It was subtle. Slow. Like watching a shadow stretch across a room, inch by inch. And when I finally uncovered everything, when the last lie crumbled right in front of me, I didn't break the way she expected. No. I made sure the world knew what she had done. But before all of that, before the fallout, before the storm, there was one final moment. One moment where she stood in front of me, breath unsteady, eyes filled with a mix of guilt and something I still can't name. A moment where I almost reached out, and she almost let me. Almost. And that's where our story begins. She didn't move at first. She just stood there, barely an arm's length away, breathing like every inhale cost her something. The hallway felt too narrow, too intimate, like it was forcing us into a moment neither of us had prepared for. Her eyes lifted slowly, hesitant, trembling, and when they met mine, something inside me tightened. Not anger. Not yet. Something more fragile. Something that felt dangerously close to the version of us I once knew. "Did you need something?" she asked, her voice low, softer than usual, as if she was afraid to disturb the space between us. "I think you know," I said quietly. A faint quiver passed through her expression, guilt or longing, I couldn't tell. Her fingers brushed the wall behind her, looking for something to anchor herself. She looked tired. Worn. Like someone who'd been carrying a truth too heavy for too long. For a moment, neither of us spoke. We just looked at each other. And in that silence, I caught a flicker of the woman I fell in love with. The woman who used to lean into me without hesitation. The woman who'd once reached for my hand as naturally as breathing. But now her hand hovered, suspended between wanting and refusing. "You've been distant," I said. My voice wasn't accusing. It was softer than I expected. Almost pleading. "You don't look at me the same way." Her breath stuttered. "It's not that simple. It never is." I stepped closer, just enough that the warmth of her skin brushed mine without touching. The tension pulled tight, almost humming between us. "Then explain it." Her eyes flicked to my lips for the faintest second, so quick I almost doubted it, then back up to my face. A confession trembled on her mouth, but she swallowed it. She always swallowed it. "I can't," she whispered. "Why?" I murmured. She didn't answer. Instead, she turned slightly, but not away, just enough that her shoulder brushed against my chest. A small, accidental touch. Too soft to mean anything. Too intentional to mean nothing. It lingered. She lingered. And when she finally stepped back, her voice was barely audible. "Because, if I start telling the truth, I won't be able to stop." The look she gave me then was raw, vulnerable, and full of something I hadn't seen in months, a spark of the desire she kept trying to bury. And suddenly, the air between us felt dangerous. She didn't walk away completely. She only stepped back far enough to breathe, but not far enough to break whatever invisible thread still connected us. Her eyes lowered to the floor, then lifted again, shining with a mixture of fear and something far more dangerous, longing. The kind people try to hide, even from themselves. "I don't want to hurt you," she murmured. A bitter smile tugged at my lips. "You already did." She flinched, not dramatically, just a small tightening around her eyes. The kind of reaction someone gives when the truth hits too close. Her hand lifted slightly, as if she meant to touch me, but she stopped halfway, fingers hovering in the space between us. "I didn't mean to," she whispered. "I know. And I did. That was the worst part." Her breath trembled. Mine wasn't steady either. The hallway felt warmer now, closer. The air carried something electric, something neither of us wanted to name out loud. She stepped forward again, almost unconsciously, until her fingertips grazed my wrist. A light, trembling touch, barely there, but enough to send a jolt through both of us. I didn't move. Neither did she. "Why are you doing this?" I asked softly. Her fingers curled slightly, like she was holding on to a moment she knew she shouldn't. "Because I can't keep pretending nothing's wrong." "Then tell me what is." Her lips parted, and for a second, a full, breathless second, she leaned in. Not enough to close the distance, but enough that I felt the warmth of her breath on my cheek, saw the way her lashes trembled, watched the war inside her. Desire. Fear. Guilt. Hope. All tangled together. And I'm afraid time is the one thing we don't have anymore. The silence that followed was heavy, charged, thick with everything we felt but couldn't say, the kind that could pull two people together or tear them apart. And neither of us knew which way it would fall. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The hallway felt too quiet, too full, like the air itself was waiting for something to happen. She stood against the wall, her breath catching in a way that made my chest tighten. Her eyes lifted slowly, and the look she gave me wasn't guilt this time. It was longing. Unmistakable. Unhidden. "Tell me what you're thinking," I said quietly. She shook her head. "If I say it, I won't be able to take it back." "Maybe that's the point." Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She pushed a shaking hand through her hair, and for the first time, the wall she'd been holding up for weeks trembled. I stepped closer, not touching, just letting my presence fill the space in front of her. Her breathing stuttered, her fingers curling slightly like she wanted to reach for me and was terrified of the urge. "You don't know how hard this is," she whispered. "I do," I said. "Because I'm standing right here, feeling the same thing." Her eyes softened in a way that almost hurt. She swallowed, the muscles in her throat tightening, and then, she let her hand fall. Slowly. Deliberately. Until her fingertips brushed the back of my hand. A light touch. Barely anything. But it felt like a spark ran straight through us both. She didn't pull away. Neither did I. Her voice dropped to a trembling whisper. "I miss us." The words hit with the force of a confession she'd been burying for months. Something fragile cracked open inside her, and in me. I stepped in just a little more, until we were close enough that if either of us breathed too deep, we'd touch. "You could have told me," I murmured. "I was scared." Her eyes glimmered. "Still am." "Of me?" "No," her voice shivered. "Of how much I still want you." The world fell silent. Her forehead tilted toward mine, not touching, just close enough that I felt the warmth of her skin. Her breath brushed my lips. My hand rose on its own, stopping just short of her cheek. We hovered in that impossible, burning space between touching and not touching. One more inch and everything would change. She closed her eyes. I almost did too. And then, she whispered my name. Soft. Shaken. Full of everything she couldn't say. The moment held, stretched, almost broke, and then the story stopped right there, on the edge of something neither of us could undo. It happened on a night when the world felt softer than usual. Rain tapped gently against the living room windows, turning the outside into a blur of silver streaks. The lights were dim, warm, the kind that made every shadow look like a secret waiting to be confessed. She stood near the bookshelf, arms wrapped around herself as if holding her own trembling together. I entered quietly, the air shifting between us like it recognized something was about to break. When she turned, her eyes weren't running anymore. They weren't hiding. They were simply open, painfully, beautifully open. You didn't leave, she whispered. I couldn't. Something in her chest shuddered, like those two words had pulled a knot loose inside her. She took one step toward me, then another, slow and uncertain, as if each inch carried a lifetime of doubt. The rain softened outside, and the room felt impossibly still. When she reached me, her hand lifted, hesitant, fragile, and rested against my chest. Just her palm. Just that warmth. But it felt like everything. I'm tired of fighting myself, she breathed. My fingers brushed her waist, barely holding, barely touching. Her breath trembled, melting into mine as she leaned closer, her forehead pressing gently against my cheek. There was no rush, her lips hovered near my jaw, not kissing, just breathing there. Soft, warm, devastating. I miss the way you used to look at me, she murmured. I never stopped. She exhaled sharply, a sound that felt like relief and longing tangled together. My hand slid along her back, slow enough to ask permission, gentle enough to show I meant every second. She didn't pull away. Instead, she stepped into me fully, her body fitting against mine like we had been sculpted from the same quiet ache. Her fingers curled into my shirt, pulling just slightly, just enough that our breaths mingled, hers rising, mine unsteady. The heat between us wasn't loud, it was deep, spreading like warmth in cold hands. When she finally lifted her face, our lips didn't collide, they drifted. Hovered. Met in the faintest, softest touch that felt less like a kiss and more like a confession shaped in silence. Her breath melted into mine. My hands framed her waist as she sighed against my mouth, the kind of sigh that carried months of what-ifs and almosts. She kissed me again, slow, trembling, like she was learning the shape of me all over. No urgency. Just a long, aching surrender. Her fingers traced the back of my neck, sending heat through every inch of me. My lips found her temple, her cheek, the corner of her mouth, each touch speaking the words neither of us had been brave enough to say. Our bodies didn't rush. They leaned, pressed, breathed. Skin against skin in the most innocent, devastating way, warmth meeting warmth, hearts beating too loud, silence breaking in the space where our mouths met again. The truth, she whispered into my lips. Yes. I never stopped wanting you. The night wrapped around us, rain, breath, warmth, as we finally let go of everything except each other. Morning arrived quietly, like it didn't want to disturb what the night had done to us. The rain had stopped, leaving the world washed clean, but inside the house, nothing felt simple. She sat at the edge of the sofa, wrapped in the soft glow of early light slipping through the curtains. Her hair was still, not to myself. A quiet truth. A painful one. But before I could answer, a sudden knock echoed through the door, sharp, unexpected, slicing through the morning calm like a blade. She flinched, panic flickering across her face. Who's that? I asked. She shook her head, breath catching. I don't know. I wasn't expecting anyone. Another knock. This one harder. She stood, but her legs wavered, and instinctively, I reached out, steadying her. Her hand gripped my arm, tight, as if the world outside that door was something she wasn't ready to face. Do you want me to open it? I asked. Her eyes, still swollen with last night's emotions, lifted to mine. And for a moment, she leaned into the touch, as if needing the comfort more than she wanted to admit. Yes, she whispered. But, don't leave my side. I walked with her toward the door, each step thick with a new tension, not the longing of last night, but a growing, gnawing uncertainty. She stood behind me, fingers brushing the back of my shirt, a soft touch that told me she was as scared as she was connected. I opened the door. And whatever, or whoever, stood on the other side, changed everything. The door opened to reveal her younger brother standing there, eyes sharp, breath unsteady, as if he already knew something he wished he didn't. His gaze flicked from me to her, then back again, reading the silence like a confession carved into the air. You two okay? He asked. It was such a simple question, but it carried the weight of everything unsaid. She moved to stand beside me, not behind me. Her shoulder brushed mine, a quiet, deliberate choice. Not hiding. Not running. Just, standing where she felt she needed to. We will be, she answered softly. He studied her face for a long moment. Whatever he saw there made his shoulders drop, worry settling into acceptance. If you need me, I'm here, he said before stepping back into the rain and leaving us with the echo of his concern. When the door closed, the house fell into a different kind of silence, not fearful, not heavy. Just real. She exhaled, long and shaky, then leaned her forehead against my chest, like she'd been holding her breath for weeks and finally remembered how to breathe. I wrapped my arms around her gently, not claiming, not pulling, just holding. She melted into the embrace with a softness that felt like truth. Last night wasn't a mistake, she whispered. But it was. I leaned into her touch, letting the warmth steady everything inside me. No dramatic declarations. No instant fixes. Just two people deciding to rebuild, one breath at a time. She pressed a soft kiss to my forehead, a quiet vow, gentle and grounding. I closed my eyes, letting the peace of it settle. When she rested her head on my shoulder, our hearts found a rhythm that felt like home. We weren't perfect. We weren't fully healed. But we were choosing the same direction. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough.